One of the things they did in about 400 years ago, uh, sorry, one of the things they did 400 years ago was they split out space and time. I don't know why they did that. I think they may needed some sort of abrasion like between space and time to run them up together, to get them their together, their discoveries, if you like. But for me, time is not a concept. This type of space travel type of thing is, in my view, is a nonsense. Uh, because if you want to, it only got introduced because time became a concept, and you can't travel through a concept. Okay, it's just silly. Uh, 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 but if you remove time, that concept of time, and then replace it with a constant change, it's an awful easier as an individual, but not as an objective thing. The appearance of flat Earth, the appearance, like just what you see in your field. In order to enhance that field, you sort of need to think, in my view, uh, less in terms of the objective concept of time, and more in terms of what it's doing. Like just the world turns around, that around Venus is the same. You got everything's in motion. Every single thing is in motion and in movement. That's apparently is a fact at the moment. But to bring that fact and to take it into 400 years ago, into the paradigm that would have existed, had they grabbed it, then it would have been an entirely different sort of arrangement, I think. Yeah. So for me, like things like the time and the travel, the time and the space division by Immanuel Kant and so forth and all that other lot. I think I prefer to use the term here. And the reason I use that here, yeah, that's very, very good in a connectivity sense, because if I say here, I know I'm standing on the ground. Okay. The other thing is I can acknowledge that I'm on a big, huge lump of rock and it's turning around, and I can acknowledge that that rock is that turning around is in fact going in this circular thing around the sun, which renders our term year. But I'll come to that when we talk about measurement of time years ago is a different type of thing. So when I say here, I'm able, basically the singularity of the part, that's me, and the generality, as to where some spatial place, yeah. I don't know where it is. Like if I can make reference to the space we got here on the planet, but then you move outside and outside and outside. And I think perhaps if an individual is to grab themselves and just try and see it, try and see it in those terms and not in the concept, because the concept it just really belongs to science without the science. Okay, so if I use the word here, like think here or hereafter, I know it sounds daft and really sort of worldly, but it's an easier gateway into a different type of way of looking at things. One of those ways that you might want to look at and think is that rather than think of what's happening, just to you assess the purpose on every single thing that's actually happens. Just look at the purpose, look at the will behind it. Yeah, what kind of will is it? Is it a good type or a bad type? You got all these right. So I'm just going to because yeah, time is fair. So yeah, I mean that helps an awful lot. If you just think of here, yeah, because when you go to shift your paradigm or whatever. I think that is 3 minutes. It's going to be a short video, not a short. Sorry. Right. The other thing is, yeah. When that 400 years ago, I keep coming back to this, and what they did with the reason, I don't know if you remember me talking about excess, like, in Aristotelian, this golden ratio, like let's say if you take freedom or something like that, or liberality or something like that, it's in the person anyway. They've got it anyway. It's just a matter of, where is that golden mean, as it were, beyond which you won't sort of use that freedom for other things other than, what your purpose or your paradigm contains. Yeah. Now, if it's sorry, how do I say this? If it's how would I say this? Listen, I'm just going to pretty difficult to explain, but yeah. So basically, when you had the reason, you used reason to justify excess. Yeah. So you made reason take priority over being, and then you went and legitimized with distributive laws, certain things that a human being perhaps wouldn't do. And a lot of those laws, I think, protect people who might want to, you know, perhaps treat people as means to their end, rather than them being ends in themselves, like that, rather than acknowledging the people's being. Yeah. So where do I go? Right. So and they, and then what you do is like excess just means I think I explained ex ample. Yeah, you got ample and then ex ample. Excess is ex. You got excess. Yeah, and that is really related essence. It was life, which is your A or whatever way you want to form it, and uh, and then X is that what pulls out. In the same way as that excess, is like sort of a self-imposed tax in a way, where you tax your being, not necessarily your body. Okay, what else? Yeah, the other thing is if I'm talking about issues, let's say about 1666, and I'm talking about Sistine Chapel, I'm talking about the Nicene demiurge, if you like, this separate creator. That's like I don't know, understand that, and you can take that out, personify it, and stick it on a seal and stuff like that. And I prefer that to that as God. Yeah, but in my type, I prefer to use for this other type of the word type thing, the father type thing. I like to use the word uh, L. Yeah, and the reason I like to use that is because a lot of this means of God. So you get people like Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and all that stuff. With the El at the end, and Oriel and Ariel and things like that. Like it means of God, and it makes things an awful lot easier when I differentiate between the demiurge, if you like, the guy taking the thing over the sun, with the beard and all that, much the same way that Thor used to be thunder, with the big bang, all that crack, it just sounded like a hammer. It makes me think it might be a Bronze Age guy, a Bronze Age deity, or not a Bronze Age, Iron Age deity, So I think it might have been quite late. But then that was that big noise, and then it becomes Thor, and then it becomes you personify it, and then iconize it or whatever, becomes a human being, big man. I know it's a couple of IOs, digital on with the Marvel comics type thing, So that's it, and it's really strange because that's what you got now at that level. And you got to realize that some Norse would not have sailed without, you know, due reference to, or reverence, if you like, in that paradigm. Yeah. But where we are now is that we are mocking not necessarily the gods, that God, if you like, or that thing. We're mocking the actual intent behind that value that those people had in a different paradigm. But that's what you. So I'm not a big fan of God. I think it got cottoned on there because when they were changing all the going from the Aramaic into the Greek, or the Greek into the Latin, and then the Latin, and then when Gutenberg comes up, I think the first book published, I think it was I don't know if it was in Latin, Vulgar Latin, or German, but I think it was German, because it was Gutenberg, and I think that was the first Bible printed. I think Caxton came on in England about 50 years later. But the thing is, you had to put something in, and then when the King James comes in, I mean, the word was there, so they just used God, And for me, that's, I mean, it's got a no in it. It's nearly the end, I like it, keep it up either alpha or L, and for just for it's a sort of a comfort thing, really. But that's just me. So and then there's Michael, Oriel, Ariel, Gabrielle, and all that. So it's sort of there's nobody around there called Magog or something like that. There's no that's not knocking around. So I'm not going to use like nobody uses the name and then with God in it. So I thought as reference, so I'd use L. It makes things an awful lot easier, for me. Okay. What's something else? Yeah, it's just the name Got and Go, Got and God and Goat. It all sounded the same. So I'm going to just leave it like that for